politicians' tune, because you'll find different headlines going to different regions. Why don't media houses get BBI and break it down to Kenyans, or President Uhuru and Raila pay them to do so? Okay, a question being asked right there. Keep them coming in. Of course, the WhatsApp number is right at the bottom of your screen, scrolling therein. I want to shift gears a bit and move from matters politics to the economy, because at the end of the day, even when you spoke to people who had gone for this particular rally, that's really all they wanted to hear. Whether it was regional government that could be put aside, whether it's a PM that could be put aside, where do I get my jobs, how do I get my business to move forward, because things have been pretty thick, as they said, coming to the end of 2019. And we come to page 2 of the Standard. Tiers as auctions account for a third of properties on sale. 1 in 3 houses on sale is under the hammer, pointing to an economy where buyers are not able to pay off mortgages and other loans. Let's not forget that even as we're talking about housing, this particular issue, it's an essential pillar of what will be the president's legacy in his second term in the Big Four agenda, affordable housing. But when you look at the economy, it's really hard to get this done. Do you think you will pull through on this particular promised pledge on affordable housing?
Actually, for me, when I looked at that issue, I realized that is the first death of that legacy project. I mean,
when you talk about housing,
you know, you don't create houses as a government. You only create houses in emergency settings. You can create houses for example, for government workers, civil workers, civil service, but not necessarily in an economy that is competitive. What normally happens is that when you finish college, you will go for a small house, which you can manage during internship. But the moment you get your first job, you will move yourself. You don't need government to create a house for you. There are people who will build houses. You stimulate the economy, and people will actually build from there. This boom that we are having right now is because when the Kibaki regime organized the government at that moment in terms of economic management, there was a boom and people went into the real estate housing. So houses automatically flow from better organization of government policy. You don't create government as a government housing as a co-project. That is one. Number two, in terms of our economic management, we have dismally failed. I mean, from the Rotich years, and the Rotich era will be one of the most worst in terms of economic management in this country, because we went further into debt, and that had a spiral effect. And so right now what you're looking at, almost 20 to 30 companies laid off people in sequence last year. And what you're finding is that we don't have commensurate re-employment of those people. What are they going to do? What are those people going to do? And you're going to have a lot of mugging, a lot of debt. You're going to have a lot of social debt. Because when I'm out of job, I'll have to depend on my brother. I'll have to depend on my friend. We're going to have a spiral of social debt. Depression will come in. You're going to have a very frustrated society. And then you subject them now to your BBI. What are you doing?
Right.
How far can a society endure?
Michelle, the picture being painted by Edward right there as far as it's concerned. We had 4 key projects or 4 pillars as far as this was concerned. With the housing, and very many people asked how this will work. What was your take on that particular scenario? Because as of now, it looks like there's a glut in the housing market, and even those who had started off now can't even finish paying the mortgages it took earlier.
You know, he's actually painted it out as we will have, we will have, we will have. But in the actual sense of it, that is where we are at right now. And it is sad, but it is true that we have, personally, if I was to point a finger at somebody, I would point a finger at the middle class of Kenya, because I feel like they are the ones who have necessitated for us to be in such a situation. Because you find basic necessities, food, housing, shelter, those ones should be cheap. Because if the government wants to get the most out of somebody, they should make certain things affordable so that you can focus on other ways of generating revenue and income for the nation. But you see, even food, even housing, it's not cheap. So then if you cannot make housing cheap and get other ways of generating income, for sure I will be frustrated. Because if most of the people in Nairobi, they work for rent and fare to get to work. And then from there you work on hand-to-mouth basis. Because why? We are not complaining enough. We are not upset enough. Because I will take my child maybe to a public primary school and be like, you know what, this is not working for my child. Let me take my child to a private school. A private school is expensive. I cannot afford it. Then that makes me go and take loans. And then I'd be like, I don't feel like I want to live in this place because it doesn't look good. Whose responsibilities is it to make this place look good and decent enough for me to live there comfortably so that I can actually focus on other things? But instead of us complaining and making sure that basic necessities are cheap, we just elevate ourselves, or we look for easier way out. And then that is why you end up finding people, many people, if you actually do a general public review opinion, you will find that most people would be willing to participate in corruption than shut it down because they feel like, I want to get more money so that I can take I don't care about my neighbor. As long as I take my child to a good school and I live in a good neighborhood, that's it. I don't care about any other person. But we need to make sure that, starting from the politicians, these public schools, they were good schools. They were good enough before we started the trend of taking children to private school. They were good enough. Why can't they lead by example? Public hospitals, they should be good enough because health is a basic necessity. It should be cheap, but it is not. We are not doing enough as the middle class because there's the rich and there's the poor. The rich can afford anything they want. The poor, I feel like it's gotten to a point where they have nothing else to say because nobody is listening to them. But the middle class, which I think is the biggest population, we are doing nothing about our situation, and that's why we have issues such as housing, Kenya now becoming an auction market. Somebody takes a mortgage because they think for as long as they will always steal money, they can afford a house. And then they realize, you know what, it was only a temporary moment, I cannot afford this house anymore, and I did not complain when I should have complained. So I think that is the challenge. That is the biggest challenge.
Dennis, do you agree with that? Does the blame stop at the middle class's doorstep?
The middle class really are middle class because they have access to credit. And the issues around access to credit, of course, we know. We know about the capping. We know about many issues in terms of accessing credit. Perhaps the biggest gain of the middle class in Kenya is driving a Subaru, but that's whatever. This issue is extremely critical. And the real estate boom, as it was not just a pipe dream, but allow me to say this, it was a wet dream. It's the biggest fallacy that this nation has ever faced. Why? Because it wasn't a boom, it was a way of cleaning some money. It was
so there was never a boom in the first place.
Money laundering. It wasn't a boom. Who is buying it with this economy? Who has the money, man? I mean, the kind of nature, the houses that are coming are not even for middle class. They aren't. They are for your upper tier. One of the things I do when I want to have a nice day is that I go for house shopping. And I'm telling you, when you see a house, rental, or buying, you know, as much as $1 billion, you ask yourself, who is buying these things? So this was an issue of cleaning excessive money, money laundering, from your corrupt governors who are multi-billionaires and they have no idea where to hide money. You understand? The money that is being stolen from a tax perspective and whatever it is that there is being cleaned at the real estate aspect. But let me tell you something. How come this is not thriving? And it's one of the key big four issues. That so far, out of the 500,000 projected houses to 2022 is only about 288 have been flagged off. What isn't working? And my brother here said, you know, a few critical things. When government seeks to be the businessman, then the country will struggle. Why? The Kenyan economy is market-based. You understand? So if the markets don't thrive, then the nation does not thrive. But when the government wants to be the businessman, then there's a problem. You're seeing the fastest nature of our government, that even the SJR, they want to kill businesses in Mombasa. You understand? So when you say that you're the one who is going to deliver affordable housing, what you're doing is that you're killing from the very low. The guy who has a hardware right outside my house is not going to make money. You understand? Also, real estate boom, or that pillar, should empower them, the manufacturing pillar. It means that we are manufacturing nails. We're manufacturing everything possible in this country. We are not importing it from China. You know, there is no project in this country that's mega that we are going to pay and we've poured billions to that has helped and assisted, you know, the micro business enterprises in this country that contribute to half of our GDP because our economy is market-based. So the government must cease being fascist in nature. You want to control milk, you want to control coffee, you want to control tea, you want to control healthcare, you want to control every little thing. Yet your economy is market-based. That in itself is strangling the child that is your hope. You understand? So it is the nature of where the government sits, the greed that it portends. You understand? That is killing this thing. But there has never been a property boom in this country.
Okay, let's change that argument for 1 second quickly as we move on.
Sure.
So how does the government fix the economy? Because
The government
it's been trying to intervene in different sectors, but from what I'm getting, you're like, okay, fine, you can't play both businessman and government.
You can't.
How do they jumpstart the economy?
Play as a policy person. Empower micro enterprises. Make sure they access credit. Resolve the issue of insolvency. Companies are closing down. That's why you're seeing we have auctioneers everywhere. That is why what is this thing called that we publish, people who have left us? You know,
The obituaries.
The obituaries are getting bigger. Resolve the issue of insolvency. Companies are shutting down because A, they have no access to credit. Even if they have access to credit, it's too expensive. Find a way where you have your pillar of giving them some tax relief nature. Empower them. Give them grants. Even you're receiving grants. When you receive these grants, where do they go to? You understand? Make sure that you go from region to region, empowering contractors, empowering people who want to be house owners. At the end of the day, put them in one bracket and make sure that that is affordable. In terms of accessing materials, whatever it is, because a lot of these things, naturally, we're able to build houses just by very little struggle. From a policy perspective, Parliament can lift these leads. And this country can enjoy housing for everyone. Because this country is less than 20% occupied, naturally. What we did is that we followed the gravy trail of the train. The other second thing that you need to do is enforce contracts. Those people who are supplying for you businesses, the small company owners, fact of the sort, you can't pay them after 7 years. You can't pay them after 5 years. You understand? Make sure that revenue flows from the top to bottom. It's like oil. You can't prevent it from flowing through your bid all the way to the skirts. And that's what the Bible says. There are very minute things that don't need BBI to make sure that your pillars work. Okay. But we're seeing that now they've abandoned the pillars. Now it's BBI. So this is going to be buried in some wind. We don't know. We have no idea. But at the end of the day, the housing bit is being propagated by government.
Michelle, some people are
And
saying, okay, fine. All this is done in steps. They've tried to increase, cash flow in the economy, all pending debts. Treasury talking tough to both the national and county government to pay their debts. Are they now moving in the right direction, or do you feel like this is more lip service and might not get us to where we want to go?
Yeah, just to pick up from where he left, you can't play both the controller and also the implementer and the enforcer. You can't be everything. And you see, if you try to be everything, you say you're putting in place legislation, but still you're the supply, you're providing the supply, and also you're supposed to provide the market. There's no genuineness. And if there is no genuineness, no matter what you do, I will still always be like, okay, this person looks like he wants to help me, but he's giving me this end of the stick while he's holding back the longer bit of the stick. So then where does that really place me? So there's no genuineness. And for as long as there's no genuineness, if they just empower people, if they regulate legislation, if they enforce the contracts that they should actually enforce so that this can be a fair play, not necessarily fair because nothing is ever fair, but it can be favorable enough for people to actually participate effectively, then that would make sense. Okay. Yeah.
We have some WhatsApp messages before I come to you, Edward, on that. If you can have them up on screen. Again, the WhatsApp number is scrolling right there, so you can send your messages as well. If you could scroll down and get it from the top. Scroll the WhatsApp up so you can read the entire message. As I do that, of course, let me look at my Twitter feed as well. We had Uniso saying present, present, present. We're going to look at the big issues of the day right here and discuss them on the show. We can get the WhatsApp message now. Is it working? Okay, let's move on to the next issue that we're talking about right there. And I'll come to you, Edward, on this particular issue because some people are saying, okay, fine, you can only do so much as far as the government is concerned, and they can't fix the economy in one day. So they're trying with the pending bills area. There were a couple of funds that were set up when the president was in Mombasa, the Cherry Revolving Fund, money to coffee farmers, to milk farmers as well. Is now the government responsive to the economy and moving in that direction?
The biggest joke that came out of IMF in the time of the SAPS was that you cannot throw money to poverty and expect poverty to run away when you don't have planning. And that's what we're doing right now. We are trying to throw money so much, funds here and there. But the structural, fundamental issues that underlie this mess that you have created, especially after the Jubilee government came into power in 2013, when the West said choices have consequences, then Jubilee said we are going to the East. And they never looked at the fine print of the East, what they were underwriting. They say, yes, you can come, and you can come, and you can come. And they're not looking at the fine print. So what happened? In those negotiations, no one was actually keen enough in terms of best practice of international negotiations for development to look at it and say, let's have an interministerial working task force that can negotiate better for us. So when they were now doing these contracts, they were not looking at issues in terms of how do we stimulate the local economy. During the Kibaki regime, it was very clear. You need to have a certain percentage of jobs from the development that you're doing with any foreign contractor going to locals. They removed all that. And so all the imports that were servicing the key projects, roads and rail and everything, were coming from outside. They're not looking at actually profiting the local economy. Then you give them so much leeway in terms of grants, in terms of taxes, exemptions. But you come to the public and you cut it out. And you bleed out and you heavily tax. And then we come now to 2017, we have 2 elections, we have all this glutted economy in terms of you have various levels of government introduced, the chief administrative secretaries, you have now the technocrats as ministers, you have permanent secretaries as ministers, you have a bloated government. All of them want allowances when they're traveling. You have key events in this country. In March, we're going to have the CSW Women Forum in New York. You'll have various delegations of government going to New York. A minimum person will get almost 800,000 in terms of allowances. That is at the national level. Then you'll have the IMF and the World Bank meetings. There will also be another entourage. Then you will have another Africa Development Bank meeting. You will have another entourage. Then you'll have New York coming in terms of September when the president goes to the UN. Another entourage. All these monies that are going out there, what will remain to stimulate the economy? There is absolutely nothing. Then we are coming here and saying, let's throw money, coffee fund, tea fund, what? Where from? You're going to have an excessively taxed country with very zero bailout, very zero money circulating in the public. The result of it, a lot of depression, an angry society. You have companies winding up. You have auctioneers. That's what you're going to create. You create a very disorganized space that at the end of the day, what remains for you is bandaging. And that's what we are doing. We're just doing bandaging at every time. We're stopping the bleeding by all these issues. I mean, I did some work sometime back in 2017. Up to now, I've not been paid by the county government of Machakos. So, I mean, I had to move on. I had to move on. I had to move on literally.
Okay, clearly there's a key issue, right? Then we want your views as well, even as you WhatsApp us on that particular issue. Because of time, we'll have to move on to our last issue of the day, and this is the arrest of Mildred Owiso. We saw the video that she had posted up on social media of the policeman in her car. Since then, of course, the police said that she was inciting the public to violence, and that's why the police had to go and arrest her the following morning. But some people saying, well, this is, even in cases of where she needed to be arrested, it was a bit heavy-handed in the manner in which it was carried out, because fortunately, there is video evidence as to how they got into her home. Dennis, I'll start with you on that particular issue, because the debate was, first of all, should you allow the officer in your car or not? That was since spelled out. But some people are saying that this was more of proving a point than actually following the law as far as the police are concerned.
Well, this for me is a matter that is very central to my heart. This being the industry that mostly butters my bread, and something that is very, very deep in my heart. I always advocate for community policing. And I always advocate that we must actively work to bridge the gap between the public and the police. Any further perpetuation of animosity between the two we are the ones who are going to suffer. There will be more and more brutality. There will be more and more suspicion. And guess what? There will be nobody to look after our homesteads, nobody to look at our, you know, the truth of the fact is that I never deal with the police force as an amorphous organization. Why? Because I have family members. I like driving it from a relationship perspective. And I like asking myself, if I know my brother is rogue, what is the approach I will use to win them over to the good side? Because the truth of the matter is that we know that most of the police force, they never join Kiganjo in an attempt to be corrupt. We were born in iniquity. Have you ever been born into a family that sells drugs? Even if you don't want, you might find yourself selling a joint or two to go through school. The police force, every officer was birthed into iniquity. They were birthed into systemic corruption. That today, if you're in a station and you don't bring some extra bread for your commanding officer, there might be an issue.
But wasn't that the whole point of the reform?
The point,
after
yes.
the iniquity, to try and
but you
get
see, let me tell you
that?
what, it's never easy to reform an institution that has been corrupt and is in corruption as a country. Because who bribes the police force? It's Kenyans, not Tanzanians. You understand? So I always advocate, please, please, this is absolutely important. The police force are our brothers and our sisters. And they have done some wrongs. Yes, we agree. And they have worked for the establishment. Yes, we agree. But what is the way forward? What is the best scenario ever? Can we work as brothers and sisters in the interest of the nation and in the spirit of the Constitution? Can we bridge that gap and look at these people as human beings that we can extend a hand and say, you know what, are you okay? Is everything okay with you? Can I give you a hug? Do you know your local police officer? But we must strongly speak against further fueling of animosity with the police force. And I believe that every Kenyan must get their requisite right where they have been abused by any police officer whatsoever. That police officer must be punished by the law that they protect. That's a fact. But the responsibility that we have as Kenyans is to make sure that we make community policing a reality. Okay. That we look at this force that we are working towards making it. Because police reforms is reforming the attitude of a nation, not the attitude of a force. Because who do they serve? Is making sure that we look at these people from an eye of a brother, from an eye of a sister. And at the end of the day, making sure that their shoes are not tight, their homes are not so dilapidated, just giving them back dignity. Because at the end of the day, if you take that dignity from a person, they'll be perpetually be angry, whatever it is that they go.
And they want to ahead on that one, because
that is for me as somebody who strongly believes in community policing.
Michelle, you've been shaking your head, and earlier you alluded to the fact that the police, during this particular arrest, had asked her, Kenya ni ya nani, in that particular scenario. Yeah. And some people saying that when you see such instances, how do you point out then a wrong by a police officer if that's the reaction you get?
You know, like, he's brought it out very well. I like the idea that he brought out that where we are at as Kenyans, people are feeling like enough is enough. And you see, as regards the law, police and all that, we are not where we should be, but we are not where we were at when we started. Because for the longest time, he's insinuating that we should be kind and polite to police officers. But you see, I have been a victim of being arrested for a traffic offense. And I'm sorry to say, but my experience was not nice. And for me, I'm not a dramatic person. So, you know, you have to do the unnecessary so that you get yourself out of the situation. And that is how most people live. You have to do the unnecessary so that you get yourself out of the situation. I hope you all understand by what I mean by the unnecessary. I was the other day talking to an Uber driver, and he was like, you know, if the police gets you in a mistake, whether you are polite, whether you're rude, if they want to make the most out of you, they will make the most out of you. Because that is how they're naturally wired, I think. The way he said, the systemic corruption that is already in existence. But you see, it is very unfair that right now more Kenyans are exposed, more Kenyans are aware of their rights, most Kenyans know what is expected. And you see, the Traffic Offence Act made it even very simple because we got this, the the short version of it, and everybody knows the penalties for each and every offense. So there is no way you can come to me and charge me for a traffic offense and then make it so big and so unnecessary that I wonder what is the problem. Because then again, I'm in very many WhatsApp groups, and most of the people were like, oh, you never want to get into a confrontation with a police officer. They will make your life hell. According to the videos that we've seen viral, if you get into any kind of confrontation with a police officer, because what was that? Seriously, there is a law in which people should be apprehended. If, okay, then let's say, for example, this lady she was bad to the police officer, and then maybe she did not go to the police station as she was told, because maybe she incited people. Again, like he said, people are tired. If I get myself in a position where a police officer is being corrupt and we are many and we overpower him, I wouldn't necessarily say it's enticement, because even if I don't do it, somebody else will do it, because people are generally tired of this. So then now you come to my house very early in the morning. That is malice aforethought. 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning, as long as the daylight breaks, you come to arrest me like that. Even if this is a common mwananchi who does not know the procedure of an arrest, the police should be the bigger person. That is not how you come to arrest me.
Okay.
And definitely what they are told or what they are taught before they get into the force, it should be able to stick. What happened there? It doesn't look good on National Police Service. It doesn't look good on DCI. It doesn't look good on IPOA, because then what are they teaching their officers? What are they giving these people for these people to act like this? We could see from the videos that have gone viral, the arrest started before this lady knew even it was happening. You see, they were spoiling. The police should be the bigger person. They know what should be done.
Edward, I'll have to come to you because of time, even as we wrap this one up. The videos have been seen, but the big question is, how do we move forward? Because yes, we're talking about police reform, but such incidents that are witnessed, people really wonder, okay, fine, did we just change the name and the uniform? Or how do we actually get community policing moving forward, and actually them being a service and feeling that if there's something wrong, I can actually challenge a police officer and not have to fear for my security or what will happen after?
I think in that incident, what for me comes to mind is the whole question of at what level does our police officers internally escalate issues, and the concept of proportionality of force, which is a big issue in terms of what level of recourse does a police officer have when their first, like layer 1 is not addressed, then we move to layer 2, and then layer 3. Those are operational issues which I think need to be handled. But at the same time, we have to understand that police reforms is not an instant. It's not like a defibrillator that you just shock someone and then the force comes in. So it is a gradual process. I'm sure that quite a number of steps have been taken concerning that incident, and I think at this level, what needs to happen is that we need to appreciate that the leadership of the police force is key, and especially 2 weeks ago, the president was in Mombasa and just was unveiling a new security vision. There is going to be progress, but I wouldn't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. Okay. I'm hopeful. Okay.
If there is going to be progress, there should have been progress, because just a few months ago, there was the documentary on police officers and how they're generally the rogue people that we expect to protect us and be like our peacekeepers and all that. They are the roguest people. So then a directive was issued. A few months later, then we see this. If change is gradual and if it should be procedural, then we should have seen the graduality in that change by this arrest.
Okay, 10 seconds, then it's okay.
Yeah, the fact is that we really need to bridge that gap, as I said. But you know, you as a citizen, you have a role also. So when you do wrong, the opportunity is present yourself to the nearest police station. Okay. Don't wait for them to come and tear gas you and break your whatever down. You have a responsibility, Jeff. If you jump a red light, please go to Kilimani police station and say, I did this. Please arrest me.
We leave it at that as far as it's concerned. Anyway, you continue on and on that, but that's why we draw the curtains as far as our newspaper review is concerned this morning. Then it's Tumbi. Thank you so much, Michelle Aluoch, as well as Edward Onyonyi. Thank you so much for making time this morning. And of course, for your views as well, keep them coming in at K24 TV. We take a break. We are back onto the side as we get interactive. Good morning.
Now, the 411 in the entertainment industry, plus what's trending. Catch the laughter and the crazy discussions on our